Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine and a week of Chardonnay. Don't run away, don't leave just yet. If you're not a Chardonnay fan, there's hope. We can convert you. Chardonnay has had a rough ride over the years, especially in South Africa, partly because people made Chardonnay so that it tasted like a plank of wood, and partly because people in California kept naming their children Chardonnay, which did nothing for the upmarket nature of the wine. But we're clawing our way back. We're not using as much wood. We're not calling our kids Chardonnay anymore, and we are making some really cool wine, especially in South Africa. And I've got a quartet of examples that hopefully will encourage you, if you are not a disciple praying at the Church of Chardonnay, to give it a go in the next little while. And we start with something from an estate you'll probably know, but not a label you'll recognize. You're wondering, what on earth is that? I've never seen it before. Well, it's actually Allée Bleu, and this is their new entry-level Chardonnay. I've always been a fan of ours. I've always liked them, principally because the school I attended, the Watershed College of Academic Excellence and Introductory Wine Tasting in rural Zimbabwe, was a school that had the owl as its logo. It watched over us during our school years. I've always been fond of them, and so too are Elke and Wilfried, the owners of Allée Bleu. When they bought the land next door to Allée Bleu, they discovered some owls there, and one in particular, and it's become sort of a mascot, I suppose, watching over the estate and keeping an eye on the property. And so they've lent that mascot to the name of the wine. This is their Blue Owl. Allée Bleu plus Owl gives you Blue Owl. They've got a couple of wines in that entry-level space, and this is the Chardonnay thereof that is very new to the local wine market. There's always the worry with an entry-level Chardonnay, a more inexpensive Chardonnay, that it might be a bit rough, it might be a bit abrasive, that it might consign you to 3 days worth of Myprodol after drinking it. This I don't think will do anything of it. It's not as silky or creamy as some Chardonnays might be, but it's still got a really nice feel to it, a really nice mouth, drinks very pleasantly. It's not an overwhelming wine, it's quite understated as a Chardonnay, and that's a good thing for many people. It's unwooded, it's not oaked, so you're not getting the wood that puts many people off Chardonnay, and so this, especially if you don't have a great track record with Chardonnay, might be one to try out. Not too expensive, so not the end of the world if you don't like it, but I think you might well, and this might put you back on that Chardonnay track. From the borders of Franschhoek to the Robertson Valley and Rietvallei. Now, when you drive into Rietvallei, it's a big sweeping entrance. It looks rather regal, rather established, which is not entirely true because it's only been going for 30 years or thereabouts. It's relatively recent. It's almost newborn in the context of some of the estates we have around South Africa that have got hundreds of years behind them. But in those 30 years, Rietvallei has established some really nice wine. I tried one of their Cab Francs a little while ago, absolutely loved it. And this is their Chardonnay, the classic Chardonnay they call it. So you'll be expecting all of the usual Chardonnay attributes. First grape they planted at Rietvallei, so they've had some time to work on it and to come up with their take on a classic Chardonnay. You can tell that Chardophobia is still an issue because on the back, on the label, they have lightly wooded in capital letters and bold and hard to miss. They know that people are wary of wood with Chardonnay, so they've made very sure that this is on the delicate side when it comes to its wood content. And it's not just delicate on the wood, it's delicate as a whole. The first Chardonnay was understated. This too, this is a little more powerful. It is slightly silkier, it's got that slightly creamier, slightly more vanilla feel to it. But it's, again, it's not imposing, it's not shouting at you. It's a relaxed Chardonnay. Some of them can be quite boisterous, remind me of lunch or dinner with my Greek family. This is quieter and more relaxed, but a very elegant wine. And classic is the right word. It's got that classic but underplayed Chardonnay feel. So again, as that path back into the world of Chardonnay continues, if that was your first step, this is a very nice second. Well, next stop a little further down the road from Robertson and Wellington. And when I saw this, I looked very quickly and subliminally, I read Lincoln Park instead of Linton Park. A golf mate of mine, Phoenix, plays in a band called Lincoln Park. I thought, oh, Phoenix, I know you like your wine. Dave is his real name. You've decided to buy a South African wine estate because Lincoln Park have been here a few times and they love South Africa. But then I had another look and realised it wasn't Lincoln Park, but in fact Linton Park, which sounds more like a Jane Austen location, but is in fact a small but rather nice wine estate just outside of Wellington. And what I instantly like about this is the packaging. It's very clean, it's very fresh, it's very crisp. It just speaks to me in a positive way. I look at it and I like it. I think I'd like to try this wine. It's completely psychosomatic, but when you see a good label and you see a bottle you like, you are inclined to be more generous in your appreciation and your tasting of it. So that said, I'm going to judge this very, very harshly and make sure that I'm demanding as I can be on what this Linton Park Chardonnay has to offer. I'm not sure I can be very harsh or demanding on that because I really, really like it. It's got a beautiful nose. Oh, really does. And then leads into, again, like the previous wine, a really beautifully structured, classic feel to a Chardonnay. Slightly stronger, very slightly woodier than the previous one. But again, a lovely sense of balance. And just a really elegant wine to drink. So I'm not sure, Dave, Phoenix, if you and the Lincoln Park team are looking to buy a wine estate. I've got no idea if Linton Park would be up for sale, but you could certainly do worse than acquire this because it is very, very nice indeed. And then to just outside of Robertson, and a place I visited on many occasions, the Rooiberg winery, home of lots of wine that's generally very inexpensive and offers great value for money. It's that place with that huge red chair, the one that looks like Groot Schalkberger could sit in it and watch over the surrounding areas all day. Regular stop on the Amstel Cape Epic, and a regular stop for me for what is usually great quality wine at very, very friendly prices. When you think of reserve, in wine terms, you tend to think something the winemaker is particularly proud of, thinks is exceptional, but also something you're going to have to pay a fair amount of money for. For me, reserve always meant my position in a rugby team, but when it's come to wine, it's something I look out for, and I look out for with enthusiasm because it's something that is probably going to be just that little bit more special. And this is the case here in terms of being special, but not in terms of price point. This was 80, 90 rand a bottle. Really good value from Rooiberg, which prides itself in making its wine accessible. So what they've done is given you the best of their Chardonnay from an area that's noted for it and created something that, as you can see from the accolades on the bottle, has been recognized by a number of people, but is also wine that you're not going to have to pay an absolute fortune for. And in the context of the whole show this week, if you look at the other three as well, 4 examples of Chardonnay that dispels perhaps perceptions you might have had of Chardonnay in the past, but also illustrates just what we're doing with Chardonnay in South Africa. Taking a grape that's got super potential here in South Africa and turning it into something really nice that's really luxurious, but not overwhelming and not overpowering. And the results in different ways are all extremely pleasing. Chardonnay, leave it out when it comes to naming your next kid, but definitely look for a couple of bottles next time you want some white wine. Cheers.